The night my father told me I was throwing my life away, I was holding a plate of my mother's pot roast and trying not to cry in front of my entire family. It was Thanksgiving, the kind where everyone squeezes around a table that's too small, where the gravy gets cold before it reaches the end, where someone always says something they can't take back. That year, the someone was my father, and this something landed right in the center of my chest and stayed there for the next 4 years. I should back up. My name is Haley. I'm 31 now. 4 years ago, I was 27, 6 months out of a marketing job at a mid-sized tech firm in Austin, and 3 months into building something I believed in with every single part of myself. A sustainable home goods brand, real products, not drop-shipped garbage, made with recycled materials, designed for people who cared about what they brought into their homes but didn't want to spend Pottery Barn prices to do it. My co-founder was my college friend, Tara. We've been talking about this idea for 2 years over phone calls and shared Google Docs and one very long weekend in her apartment in Denver, where we mapped everything out on a whiteboard we found in her building storage room. We called the company Groundwell. I loved that name. I still do. But at Thanksgiving that year, sitting at my parents' table in their house in Plano, Texas, my father didn't ask about the name. He didn't ask about the products or the market research we'd done, or the fact that we already had a small wait list of customers from a single Instagram post Tara had put up. He asked one question, and then he answered it himself before I could open my mouth. What exactly is the plan here, Haley? Because, from where I'm sitting, you quit a good salary to sell, what? Bamboo cutting boards? To who? My uncle laughed. Not a mean laugh. More like the laugh of someone who doesn't know what else to do in the silence. My mother touched my arm. I thought she was going to say something. She didn't. My brother, who works in commercial real estate and has been my father's idea of success since he closed his first deal at 24, looked down at his plate. I'm building a company, Dad, I said. My voice was steady. I was proud of that. Companies need capital, Haley. Companies need infrastructure. Companies need people who know what they're doing. You have a website. We have more than a website. How much did you put in? I hesitated. That was my mistake. How much? He said again. 30,000 between me and Tara. He set his fork down. That was how I knew the lecture was coming. He always set things down before he spoke seriously, like he needed both hands free for the weight of what he was about to say. $30,000, he repeated. Your savings, which took you how long to build up? Dad, I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to be realistic. You walked away from a job that was paying you well, with benefits, with a future, to pour your savings into a business you don't have the background to run. You have a marketing degree, not an MBA. You don't know manufacturing. You don't know logistics. You don't know I know more than you think I do. He picked his fork back up, conversation over in his mind. Just don't come asking us when it falls apart, he said. Not loud, not angry, just flat and certain, the way he said everything he believed was true. My mother refilled his glass of water. My uncle changed the subject to football. I sat there for the rest of the meal and ate my pot roast and smiled when I was supposed to smile, and when I got back to my apartment that night, I sat on my bathroom floor for a long time. Not crying, exactly. Just quiet in a way that felt different from regular quiet. I didn't tell Tara what he said, not the full version. I told her it was fine, that families were complicated, that we needed to focus. We had work to do. And we did. The first 8 months were the kind of hard that doesn't make for good storytelling. It's just relentless, unglamorous, repetitive hard. We were working out of Tara's spare bedroom in Denver, her dining table covered in samples and packaging prototypes and printed emails from suppliers who didn't want to talk to 2 women without a purchase order history. We were rejected by 11 manufacturers before we found one in Ohio who agreed to do a small first run. We were rejected by 2 accelerators. We maxed out 1 credit card between us. I was substitute teaching 4 days a week to keep my rent paid. Tara was doing freelance UX design on nights and weekends. Neither of us talked about the fact that we were exhausted in a way that sleep didn't fully fix. We just kept going. The wait list we'd built from that one Instagram post, 340 people, became the thing I looked at when everything else felt impossible. Real names, real email addresses, people who had signed up and hadn't unsigned up, who were still waiting to see if we'd actually do it. I printed the list out and taped it to the inside of my planner. Tara thought that was weird. Maybe it was, but on the days when the work felt pointless, I'd open that planner and remember that 340 strangers believed in Groundwell before we'd sold a single thing. We launched in March. We sold out our first production run in 9 days. I called my mother that night. I was so happy I couldn't sit still. I was pacing around my apartment, phone pressed to my ear, telling her the numbers, telling her we'd sold out, telling her that the reviews were coming in, and people actually loved the products. She was happy for me. She said the right things. But at the end of the call, she said, "Don't tell your father yet. Let it get more established first." I should have listened. But I was 27 and I just sold out my first production run, and I needed someone in my family to know it mattered. I called him. He said, "One good week doesn't make a business." I got off the phone and didn't call him again for 3 months. By summer, we had enough revenue to quit our side jobs. We moved Groundwell into an actual workspace, a small studio we rented in Denver, nothing fancy, concrete floors and 2 IKEA desks and a rolling rack where we kept samples. We hired our first part-time employee, a 22-year-old named Ren, who knew more about TikTok strategy than either of us would ever know. We raised a small seed round, $200,000, from 3 angel investors we'd met through the accelerator circuit we'd been quietly working. I didn't tell my family about the seed round. This was intentional. It was the decision I'm most proud of in the entire story. Because here's what I had learned in the year since Thanksgiving. Sharing information with people who are waiting for you to fail is not honesty. It's just handing them ammunition. My father wasn't going to be converted by a $200,000 seed round. He was going to ask me how much equity we'd given up, and whether we understood the implications of dilution, and whether we'd had a lawyer review the terms, all things that had in fact been handled. But questions designed to make me feel like I didn't know what I was doing. I had started to understand that some conversations aren't conversations. They're cross-examinations. So I kept quiet. And we kept building. The next 18 months were different. Still hard, but a different kind of hard. The kind with momentum in it. We expanded the product line. We landed a small placement in a lifestyle gift guide that ran in real simple, and our website traffic spiked in a way that took down the server for 4 hours, which felt terrible and amazing at the same time. We brought Ren on full time. We hired 2 more people. We moved into a real office. Tara and I were eating dinner at a taco place near our office when she told me she'd been approached by a boutique investment firm based in New York. They'd been watching us. They wanted to talk about a Series A. I put my taco down. "How much?" I said. They mentioned 3 to 5 million as a starting conversation. I looked at her for a long time. "Okay," I said. "Okay, yeah, let's talk to them." The process took 4 months. Due diligence, negotiations, more calls than I could count, 2 trips to New York. One moment in a conference room on the 23rd floor of a building in Midtown where I thought the whole thing was going to fall apart over a disagreement about board composition, and I went to the bathroom and stood at the sink for 5 minutes talking myself back from the edge. But it came together. We closed a $4.2 million Series A in February, and we signed the paperwork in Tara's living room with a bottle of champagne we'd been keeping in her fridge for 6 months, waiting for the right moment. I didn't tell my family. My mother had a habit of calling me every Sunday evening. We'd talk about her garden, my nephew's Little League games, whatever renovation project my father had started in the garage. She never asked directly about the business. She'd learned not to. But sometimes she'd slip in something that told me the topic still lived in my father's mind. A reference to her friend's daughter who was doing well in corporate. A passing mention that my brother's firm was expanding. Little calibrations. I'd stopped feeling hurt by them. Mostly, Tara's boyfriend proposed to her in April, and they set a date for the following January. She asked me to be her maid of honor, which I said yes to before she finished the sentence. The wedding became a fixed point on the horizon, something warm to move toward. The summer before her wedding, Groundwell crossed the $10 million revenue mark. I'm not going to pretend I was calm about it. I was not calm. I called Tara at 10:30 at night when I saw the quarterly numbers, and we both just screamed for a while, and then got very serious about what came next, and then screamed a little more. Ren sent us a GIF at midnight that we still have pinned in our Slack, but I also sat with it quietly, by myself, later. I thought about $30,000 and a wait list taped into a planner. I thought about 11 manufacturers who said no. I thought about my father's fork going down on the plate. I did not call him. The wedding was in Denver at a venue in the foothills west of the city. An old ranch property converted for events, all exposed wood beams and string lights and views of the mountains that made everyone who walked in stop talking for a second. It was January, cold and clear, snow on the peaks. Tara was radiant in a way I'd never seen before, which felt both entirely like her and also like something new. My family came. I'd invited them because Tara was family to me, and because I still believed in some small room inside myself that things could be different. My father shook hands with Tara's husband during the cocktail hour. They talked about golf. My mother took too many photos. My brother was pleasant, distracted, checking his phone for updates on a deal he was trying to close. It felt manageable. It felt like we might get through the whole weekend without incident. The dinner reception was long and beautiful. Speeches, dancing, the cake, more dancing. I gave my speech and I made people cry and then laugh, which is exactly what I'd planned. I found my way back to my table somewhere around 9 o'clock, tired and happy, my heels abandoned under my chair. My father was at the bar. I could see him from where I was sitting. He came back to the table with 2 drinks and set one in front of me, without asking if I wanted it. Then he sat down, and for a moment he just looked at the dance floor. "Tara's done well," he said. "She has. Her business, what's she doing now?" "I can't remember. She co-founded a company with me, Dad. Groundwell. We've been running it together for 4 years. He looked at me. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite surprise, more like recalibration. "Right," he said. Are you still doing that?" "We are." "Still in Denver?" "Still in Denver." "We have a team now, 11 people." He nodded slowly. The kind of nodding that means he's processing, but doesn't want to show it. "Things going okay?" I looked at him. At the face I'd been looking at my whole life, which had always held the same particular expression when it came to me. Concern that looked like doubt, love that came out sideways as criticism. "Things are going well," I said. He nodded again, picked up his drink. And that was when my phone buzzed in my clutch. I almost didn't look at it. I nearly left it. But it buzzed a second time, and something made me reach for it, the involuntary reflex as someone who has spent 4 years never fully turning their brain off. It was an email from our PR firm. The subject line was, "You're urgent. Forbes piece has gone live early. Check your Google alerts." My stomach dropped in the specific way it does when you're not sure yet if something is very good or very bad. I opened it. Forbes had published their annual list of America's most innovative small companies. We'd been in conversations with a journalist there for months, a profile piece we thought, maybe a mention. We hadn't known we were being considered for the list itself. We hadn't known they were going to name Groundwell the number 4 most innovative small company in the sustainable consumer goods category. We hadn't known the piece was going to include the line, Groundwell, the Austin-founded Denver-based home goods brand, has become a quiet powerhouse. 4 years from launch to a valuation that industry insiders estimate at north of $40 million. I read that paragraph 3 times. My hands were very still. "Everything okay?" my father said. I looked up. He was watching me with that expression again. The concerned, doubting one. I turned my phone around and placed it on the table in front of him, face up, so he could read the screen. He was quiet for a long time. On the dance floor, Tara and her husband were moving to something slow. String lights were swinging slightly in the draft from the heating system. Somewhere at another table, my mother was laughing at something my uncle had said. My father put his own phone down. I hadn't even noticed he picked it up and looked at the mountain view through the venue's wide windows. His jaw worked once, like he was about to say something, then stopped. The number on my screen was $40 million. The last thing he had said to me about this business, the thing I'd carried for 4 years, was don't come asking us when it falls apart. He didn't say anything now. He picked up his drink. He set it down. He looked at the dance floor. "I didn't know," he said finally. "You didn't tell me?" "No," I said. "I didn't." Another long pause. "Why?" I thought about how to answer that honestly without cruelty. I owed him honesty. I didn't owe him a weapon. "Because I needed to build it without carrying your doubt alongside me," I said. That's not an accusation. It's just what was true. He looked at me then, really looked, in a way that he didn't always do. "That's fair," he said. which was more than I expected. My mother appeared at the table with her wrap, slightly flushed from dancing, and looked between us with the antenna she developed over a lifetime of reading rooms. "What happened?" she said. My father picked up his drink and took a long, slow sip. "Your daughter," he said, "built something." My mother looked at me. I smiled. She looked at the Forbes article still glowing on the table. I watched her read the number. Her hand went to her mouth. Not a dramatic gesture, just a small, quiet covering, like something had needed to be contained. I reached over and picked my phone up and tucked it back into my clutch. On the dance floor, the song ended and another one started. Tara caught my eye across the room and raised her glass. She didn't know yet. I would tell her tomorrow, hungover in hotel robes, ordering room service, the way we talked about every major thing since college. She would scream. We would both cry. It would be perfect. But that moment, my father's silence, my mother's hand, the mountain dark beyond the windows, the string lights swaying. That moment was just mine. I'd spent 4 years building a company, and not one of those 4 years had been easy. I'd made decisions I'd second-guessed at 3 in the morning. I had signed agreements that scared me. I looked at our bank account on bad months and made myself breathe slowly and keep going anyway. I had learned that the people who love you most can sometimes be the ones who cost you the most energy to carry, and that protecting your work sometimes means protecting it even from them. None of that had been clean or triumphant or movie-like. But sitting in that chair, in that beautiful venue, in the cold, clear January of the year I turned 31, with the Forbes article on my phone and my father not speaking beside me, I let myself feel something I had kept very small and guarded for a very long time. I had done it. Not to prove anything to anyone, not as payback, not as a response to a conversation at a Thanksgiving table 4 years ago that I still remembered down to the exact weight of the silence that followed. I had done it because I had believed in the thing I was building, and I had been right, and that was enough. That was always going to be enough. The band started in on something upbeat. My uncle pulled my mother to the dance floor. My father sat quietly with his drink, looking at something I couldn't see. I slipped my heels back on, stood up, smoothed my dress, and walked out to find Tara. I thought a lot about what my father actually took from me that Thanksgiving, not confidence. I had enough stubbornness in me that confidence was never really the thing at risk. What he took or tried to was silence. The useful kind. The kind where you keep your head down and do the work without constantly checking if someone who doubts you has changed their mind yet. The hardest part of those 4 years wasn't the rejections, or the credit card debt, or the supplier who strung us along for 6 weeks and then disappeared. The hardest part was learning to stop wanting his approval badly enough that I would have traded it for something real. That's a slower lesson than it sounds. It doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in pieces, usually when you're tired, usually at the exact moment when a small voice says, "Just call him and tell him what's happening. Maybe this time will be different." I made that mistake once, the night we sold out our first run. I called him, happy and breathless and stupid with relief. And he said 1 good week doesn't make a business. And something in me that had been reaching out quietly folded back in and didn't reach again. That was the moment I understood what Tara had been telling me for years, without ever saying it directly. The people who are waiting for you to fail will find a way to reframe every success as evidence that failure is still coming. There's no number big enough to change that. There's no press mention, no sellout, no Series A. The frame doesn't shift because of your results. It shifts, if it shifts at all, only when they're sitting in front of something so undeniable that the old story they told themselves simply cannot hold. For my father, that was a Forbes article on a phone screen at a wedding reception in January. I don't say that with any satisfaction. Genuinely. What I felt in that moment wasn't triumph. It was something quieter and a little sad, because I realized that the person I'd spent 4 years wanting to prove something to hadn't actually been watching. The scoreboard I'd been running in my head was private. He hadn't been keeping score at all. What I know now is that the decision to stop explaining yourself is not the same as giving up. It is, in fact, the opposite. Every hour I didn't spend defending Groundwell to someone who didn't believe in it was an hour I spent building it instead. Every conversation I chose not to have became a decision I got to make without someone else's doubt in the room with me. That's not coldness. That's not cutting people off. It's understanding that your energy is finite, and that where you spend it is a choice that compounds over time, the same way money does. The work itself was the argument. It just needed time to finish the sentence. Tara knew that. Wren, in her own way, knew it too. She never wasted a single hour on anyone who wasn't already moving in the direction we were headed. I learned that from watching both of them. Intelligence isn't just what you know. It's knowing which conversations are worth having and which ones are just noise dressed up as concern. If you're building something right now and the people around you are waiting for it to fall apart, let them wait. Don't perform your progress for an audience that's already decided the show ends badly. Just build. Keep your numbers to yourself. Save the announcement for when the work can speak at a volume no one can talk over. That's what $40 million sounds like, apparently. It sounds like silence.